Okay, so last week I made a post on Threads saying, and I quote, "Hey, did everyone see that failed Canadian politician Pierre Poilievre went on right-wing grifter Joe Rogan's podcast? How much do you want to bet he spends at least half the episode running down his own country?" And oh boy, that triggered some people. I'm talking hate comments, insults, and one guy literally messaging me saying this, that he's going to come down there and work me out. If that guy's watching, I just wanted to let him know that this is my gym address, and I mean, he can come work out if he wants, but I doubt he'll like it there because we're a little bit too inclusive for him probably. But like, okay, relax. I figured, sure, whatever, fair enough. Based on the comments, maybe I need to actually watch this podcast. Did Pierre Poilievre actually bash Canada a lot in the podcast? I don't think he actually bashed Canada that much. So I want to go through the podcast, talk about what Poilievre did say, what it likely means to the Canadian people, and then tie this back into health and fitness somehow. Let's go. Right out the gate, Poilievre he's glazing Joe Rogan.
The problem we've had is we can't get you to come to Canada. We've actually hatched a full strategy to get you into Canada because we think it's going to do big things for our tourism numbers. Do you mind if I present you with something right out of the gate? This is from a gunsmith and machinist in Calgary, Alberta. His name is Jay. It says here on the front, Jamie, pull it up. Look at this stand here. So we've got seeing is believing, which I think was the slogan of the first UFC that you were the commentator for. And then we've got here your favorite quote from, what's his name? The Japanese martial artist.
Musashi.
Yes, and it says, "If you know the way broadly, you will see it in everything."
Yeah.
So that's here. And then Morse code, there's a thank you letter for you. And you've got your flying saucer.
Oh,
and we've
wow.
got your logo here too. So
he's giving him gifts. Like, who the fuck is this guy? Does he think he's Nardwar? Hyping him up, talking to him about kettlebells like there's some kind of ancient mystical artifact. He mentions Pavel and ancient monks and all this pseudoscience nonsense. Don't get me wrong. I don't mind Pavel. I don't want to get into adjudicating that right now. But this idea that like kettlebells are superior to dumbbells, it's like, even here at like the basic level, you have Pierre Poilievre being like, not really understanding things and just being wrong about everything, which we'll see as a recurring theme here. Anything you can do with the kettlebell, you can do with a dumbbell. And not only that, the dumbbell is going to be easier to do it with. It's going to be easier to progress weight on, and it's going to be more practical for most people. I personally prefer barbells. The hierarchy goes barbells, dumbbells, machines, sandbags, and then kettlebells. Oh yeah, I forgot resistance bands are ahead of kettlebells as well. Poilievre then talks about how he was an athlete.
I was big into sports until my mid-teens. I was on the wrestling team. I was good, but I wasn't great. Then I got a wicked tendonitis in my shoulder, and it ended my athleticism.
He says he was a wrestler and his career was ended by tendonitis. Was it? Did he actually wrestle in high school? It seems like he wasn't actually on the wrestling team. It was probably just some kind of participation thing in like gym class maybe. This tendonitis thing, this is a nonsense career-ending injury diagnosis for a young athlete, but it tracks for Poilievre. Probably poor programming and recovery and overuse, and then like not really knowing or understanding anything and then just giving up. I mean, this is like, it tracks. I have empathy to those who have tendonitis issues because they do suck in training, but it's stuff that you can obviously easily overcome with a modicum of trying. Seriously, I've worked with tons of clients who've had this. It's not a career-ending injury, any more so than stubbing your toe is. He says he got into politics through Preston Manning, who's the founder of the Reform Party up in Canada. It seems like this guy was the founder of kind of like this modern populist rhetoric on the conservative side up in Canada, similar to how modern populist right-wing rhetoric in the US led to Trump. So we're in good company here, you can see. Then he talks about Milton Friedman. He's a big fan of maximizing personal and financial freedom. Here's the problem with this. Friedman's ideas basically shaped deregulation, privatization, trickle-down economical ideas that have been failing the world for 40 fucking years now. And this is who Poilievre is basing his economical ideas on. So what did this make happen? Well, it made wealth concentrate at the top. Wealth inequality has exploded over the past few decades. Wages stagnate and the cost of living skyrocket. So when you hear that, it's not necessarily new, it's just recycled failed policy that has been failing the world for decades. Fortunately, it hasn't failed Canada as bad as it has failed the US yet, but Poilievre is working on it. They get into talking about how Canada is declining. What's wrong with Canada?
Canada. Like, I just say, I don't go up there anymore. I think that's part of what went wrong for Canada, is that people are rule followers. This wolf in sheep's clothing snuck in and, was pretending he was a sweet guy and passing all these crazy laws, and to see it go the way it's been going and sliding the way it's been happening over the last, X amount of years. There's just so many things that concern me.
And Rogan just keeps doing like these sly pokes at Canada, and instead of refuting them, Poilievre just kind of goes along with it.
Good. How's your French?
Not good.
Okay,
No.
We'll work on that. We'll get you some French lessons.
He's not directly bashing Canada himself. I didn't necessarily expect him to do that. My original point still stands. Rogan is framing Canada as failing, overregulated, and losing freedom. Poilievre barely pushes back. Instead, he reframes it into, yeah, you're right, and here's how all these conservative talking points that haven't worked in the past and are largely responsible for a lot of the bad things we're experiencing right now would fix the problem. So while he's not directly bashing Canada, he's certainly validating the premise. They talk about assisted suicide.
One of the things that really concerns me is this assisted suicide thing. Who didn't counsel this young guy? Mm-hmm. Who didn't give him a hug? Who didn't tell him about diet and exercise?
I think we do have to promote fitness more, because it gives people, it turns them into a subject that controls their surroundings rather than an object being controlled.
And like the exercise thing, it's not just give them, control of their life. It makes them happier. There's been studies that show it's much more effective than antidepressants.
Absolutely. Well, it's first of all, there's the physiological side, which affects the brain, but it's also the sensation of discomfort that you push through.
And Rogan acts as if exercise is like the cure-all to mental health. He claims that exercise outperforms antidepressants, and people just need diet and training. Now look, I am a huge proponent of diet and exercise. We know that exercise benefits mental health massively. I own a goddamn gym because I really believe in this, but it's not a replacement for treatment any more than reducing saturated fat intake is a replacement for open heart surgery once you already have heart disease. Research shows exercise is compatible and works in tandem with antidepressants, but it also shows that exercise doesn't cure severe cases of depression, and it's also not universally effective. No treatment is, because depression is complicated. These folks seem to have a very basic baby level understanding of most things. Poilievre brings up Viktor Frankl, the idea that people need to endure suffering to have meaning in life. I think this is true on some level, but here's the problem. This idea gets used for him to essentially politically say, your circumstances don't really matter as much, just find meaning. Here's where it becomes a problem, because he's using this to take focus away from people's wages, access to care, and living conditions. The things that he is proposing do not improve those things. They actually make them worse. So it's essentially coded conservative language. Whenever you hear them talking about like, circumstance don't matter, find meaning, it basically means like, we don't want to help you. We don't give a shit about helping you. We just want you to suffer. And if you have some kind of contrived culture war talking point that you can rally against, then that's all that really matters. He then goes into this like inflation argument about if you have 10 apples and then you just print more money, prices double.
If you have an economy with 10 apples and $10, it's $1 an apple. You double the number of dollars to 20, but you still only have 10 apples. Well, all of a sudden it's $2 an apple. And it's not that the cost of apples has gone up. It still costs the same resources to grow and pick the apples. It's that the price has gone up because the value of the money has gone down.
This is such a baby-brained understanding of like the world and economics. Inflation includes supply chains, corporate pricing power, global price shocks, like shit that happens from COVID. It's not just like money printer go brr. If you actually do print money, does that encourage more economic activity? Does it give the people the means to improve their current conditions now so then that they can lead to long-term change in the future? It's not just like we're immediately going like, apples are now $2, but everybody has twice as much. Like, come on. This is so baby-brained. The understanding of this is so baby-brained that he seems to have. Either his understanding is super surface level and he doesn't really understand it, or he's purposefully misunderstanding it to make a political example, or he just thinks you're stupid. I think it's probably more the latter to. In terms of housing and deregulation, he goes into pushing faster permits, less regulation, and more building. Yes, more housing can help, but it doesn't automatically mean lower prices. There's good data that we're getting right now that actually shows that this deregulation that he's pushing for leads to essentially no change in price in the housing, and it reduces standards. And this is especially true if it's the type of development that he is pushing for, which is investor-driven development, not public development. The things he's saying aren't like entirely wrong. They're just like super cherry-picked and used to build this inaccurate narrative. And then it's used to justification for deregulation of everything. Typical conservative playbook. We want the corporations to make more money. We want you to make less. We want them to pay less in taxes. We want you to work more. They talk about oil. They talk about the environment. Poilievre claims that Canadian extraction of oil is like super responsible and does no damage to the environment.
The great fear is that if you do have an impact on the environment, that impact is often permanent and that it's devastating. And I've seen some of the oil extraction that they've done up in Alberta, where you look at the area, it looks like scorched earth.
No. It's the most responsible oil extraction in the world.
But when you see these, what is that one area that often gets criticized?
Fort Mac.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, they're open pit mines. There's an impact no matter what you do, but at the end of the day, the people who live there are very healthy and very happy, and they're the strongest supporters of the expansion of the oil sands. Where there's an entire oil sands operation under your feet, you could be out in a forest hunting, and you wouldn't even know that under your feet they're extracting it through a whole system of pipes. And you can have beautiful, pristine nature, the bears, the deer, the birds. They don't even know that there's extraction happening under their feet.
And that First Nations are doing so good because of this. He acts as if First Nations, like every First Nations tribe in Canada, is a complete monolith and 100% on board with this crap. Sure, some First Nations do benefit economically from this policy, but the vast majority of it is getting absorbed by oil executives at the very top level. Like if he actually wanted to do the things that would benefit the people the most, there would be stuff like payments to the First Nations tribes for using their land, high tax rates on these things, so then that money can be redistributed to the people instead of just going to the top level executives at the oil companies, and robust environmental protection so we don't permanently ruin things. But instead, he just cares about, lower the taxes on the oil companies, make them pay like nothing, and then don't worry about permitting or regulations. Push it through in a week, make it happen. He thinks you're stupid. That's like the most likely option here. Again, it's one of three things. He's stupid, he thinks you're stupid, or he's framing it this way for political gain. And he acts like this big LNG project in BC it's like a $40 billion private investment. By the way, one of, if not the largest private investments in the history of Canada. He literally says that this is eliminating poverty in First Nations tribes. Completely made up. And the fact that Poilievre wants to do this with like even less regulation and less taxes on the wealthy basically means that it's pretty much guaranteed to freeze out those who are the poorest. Another thing he talks about is immigration and fake refugees. Like there's a crisis of fake refugees coming into Canada.
We're giving a lot of money to fake refugees, people who come in and don't they're not actually fleeing danger. I have no time for people who are pretending, but they're not really.
And what do you mean by pretending to be a refugee? How are they doing this?
They're not actually endangered in their home country. So they've come to be declared themselves as students and then wanting to stay, declaring a refugee status.
Oh, and this is common?
Yeah, it happens. It happens, and we can't spend money on enhanced social services, advanced programs that we as Canadians don't get.
Is this that common that it's actually affecting our economy?
Right now, it's a challenge because we had a big number of international students and temporary foreign workers that came in very large numbers in like 2 or 3 years. We were bringing in about 1 million people a year, which in America's terms would be 10 million, like just if you're doing per capita. And it really caused a housing shortage, like some places where you have 26 of these students living in one basement. So we're trying to unwind that now.
And how do you do that?
Well, when their work permit and their visitor visa runs out, then we have to encourage them to head back lawfully.
Right.
He claims that people are pretending to be refugees and that they're getting benefits that even Canadians can't get. But then Rogan, right-wing Joe Rogan, actually questions him from his left and asks, so how common is this actually? His answer is, it happens. He has nothing basically to back himself up. That's not evidence. In reality, fraud exists, but it's rare. The impact on taxpayers is likely very small, and refugees do not receive better benefits than Canadian citizens. He's just making stuff up. So he just, like typical conservative strategy, take a tiny issue that these things should exist and certainly we should prosecute the folks who are taking advantage of the system illegally, and then he blows it way out of proportion and uses it to justify culture war BS and cutting all sorts of like other government programs, I'm sure is the long-term goal. What's the big pattern here? Like, honestly, I watched an hour of this podcast and I can't take it anymore. Here's what happens. Poilievre validates Rogan's negative framing of Canada. He avoids directly pushing back. He pivots everything into conservative talking points like deregulation, trickle-down economics, lower taxes, freedom, and policies that have been failing the world for decades at this point. He's certainly not overtly saying Canada sucks, but it's like Canada's broken, and these things that were largely responsible for creating a lot of these problems that actually exist, I'm just going to do them, but worse. And I'm also going to scapegoat a bunch of other people, cut taxes on the rich, exploit the environment, so on and so forth. So why does this matter? And let's connect this into health and fitness. It matters because this ideology directly impacts the health and fitness of the population. Look at movements like Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s MAHA movement. They'll encourage you to take personal responsibility for everything while they cut public health programs. They'll tell you to just eat better, and then they reduce regulations on food and make it easier for food companies to exploit you. They'll tell you to just train, just go to the gym, just work out, and then ignore accessibility and affordability. But then the things that we know to improve actual health, the things that policymakers should be doing at a systemic level, like allowing people to have more access to nutritious foods, stable income, time so people actually can engage in fitness activities, and keeping the environment and the world safe, they're just like, not that, just try harder. And this doesn't work in fitness. People need not only the resources, but the capacity to take advantage of those resources for them to effectively reach their fitness goals. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, I have to work with clients who lack resources. Oftentimes, this is very systemic, and we have to work in a hostile food environment. We have to work in a place where like healthy food is super unaffordable, gym facility is hard to get to or far away, and there's so much misinformation out there because nothing's regulated and expert opinion is treated like trash by these people. These things don't work in fitness and they don't work in society. So yeah, did Poilievre go on Joe Rogan and just straight up bash Canada? No, but I wasn't really expecting him to. He still kind of put out the exact vibes I was expecting and the exact vibes and things that are not helping Canada. And he doesn't really give much pushback to defend the country either. And he just used this to reframe Canada as being broken and push the same ideas that we've seen fail for decades. Anyway, that's why I made this video. I could go way more in depth on this stuff, but I want to keep this video fairly manageable time-wise. If you watch the full podcast and think I somehow missed something by only watching half of it, please leave me a comment below and let me know what I missed. And yeah, you know, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Thanks for watching.